Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into, well, a really curious case. A book that's been huge on bestseller lists all over the world.
Huh?
But at the same time, it sparks some pretty intense debates among readers. We are cracking open Evie Wood's international hit, The Lost Bookshop.
It really is fascinating. It manages to be this really sincere love letter to bibliophiles, as
Yeah.
people say. But then for its critics, it's also seen as, well, frustratingly illogical in
Why?
parts.
Yeah.
It's a great case study in, what makes readers connect versus what makes them critique the structure.
Absolutely. So our mission today isn't just to give you a summary, you can get that anywhere. We really want to try and figure out how this one book can pull in such passionate fans and at the same time generate real frustration. We're going to unpack those dual timelines, look at the feminist themes, the literary stuff.
Which are really strong.
Definitely. And ultimately try to get a handle on why its amazing atmosphere and emotional pull seem to, for many people, just override the need for everything to add up perfectly logically.
And I think central to understanding both its appeal and maybe some of those criticisms is the magical element at its core. The book is fundamentally an ode to how powerful literature can be.
Right.
The Last Bookshop itself. It's a magical space. It bends time, defies logic, appears and disappears. Like a literary ghost almost.
Phantom.
It's this haven that kind of challenges your skepticism. And it only seems to offer refuge to those who are, I guess, ready to believe in its power.
Okay, let's get into the mechanics of it then, because understanding why it gets these reactions means understanding how Woods put it together. We're juggling 3 lives, right? Across 2 different times.
Exactly. 1920s Paris and then modern-day Dublin. It's quite ambitious.
So let's start back then with Opaline.
Yes, Opaline. She's really the historical heart of it. A young woman, pretty rebellious for the time, escaping 1920s England, specifically, an arranged marriage she wants no part of.
A classic setup for finding freedom.
And she's forging her own path, looking for intellectual freedom, really.
And that path takes her straight into, literary history mecca. She ends up working at Sylvia Beach's Shakespeare and Company in Paris. Iconic place.
Absolutely iconic. And that's where she gets caught up in the main historical plot, protecting this incredibly valuable, supposedly lost manuscript by Emily Bronte.
Which is quite the MacGuffin.
It is. But Woods does a good job grounding Opaline's story in the real history of that Paris literary scene. You feel that connection to Sylvia Beach and the times.
Okay, so fast forward to now. Modern Dublin. We meet Martha.
She's a housekeeper, and she's also escaping a really difficult, abusive relationship. She finds work and maybe a bit of refuge with this eccentric older woman, Madame Bowden.
In this huge, slightly spooky, crumbling mansion.
Exactly. And Martha's story is all about reclaiming herself, finding her footing again, her initial curiosity about the house, its secrets, and this legend of a vanished bookshop. That's what pulls her towards Opaline's story.
And then there's Henry, the academic.
Ah, Henry. Yes. The PhD student, I believe. He's obsessed with finding that lost Bronte manuscript that Opaline was protecting.
Right. And he provides a contrast, maybe. He's initially presented as, well, a bit bumbling. Kind of endearing, but slightly clueless.
That's putting it mildly for some critics. They really pick up on his initial incompetence. Like the fact that he keeps somehow forgetting to Google Opaline's name.
Which seems bizarre, right? If your whole career is focused on finding her manuscript.
It does seem odd on the surface. It's definitely a point of criticism. He starts almost like a caricature.
Yeah.
But, I wonder if that initial lack of just doing the obvious thing, maybe it's deliberate.
How so?
Like maybe it suggests that Henry, representing the rational modern world, just isn't ready for the magic yet. He has to sort of fail at the logical steps before the mystical solution can even appear to him.
Huh. That's an interesting take. So let's plot hole more. A commentary on academic tunnel vision needing a magical jolt.
Possibly. He definitely has to evolve. And the magical bookshop is what links them all. It forces these 3 very different people. The defiant woman from the past, the survivor needing agency now, the skeptical scholar, it forces them together.
Tied by this elusive place that only helps those who, as you said, dare to believe.
Exactly. And if we just pause on that structure for a second, the 3 lives work. But the real magic of the novel, forgive the pun, is what that bookshop represents. The fantasy elements aren't just, window dressing.
You're doing thematic heavy lifting.
Pure metaphor, absolutely, driving the whole story.
And the biggest theme has got to be books as liberation, freedom.
Without a doubt. Opaline's fight to save that manuscript directly mirrors her own fight for autonomy against, the constraints placed on women in the 1920s.
So the Bronte manuscript isn't just a plot device.
No, it's more. It represents marginalized voices, maybe. And finding it forces Martha and Henry, who are both stuck in their own modern ways, to confront this past figure who had so much agency, despite the odds.
Woods really emphasizes this with the language, too, doesn't she? There's that quote about Opaline's father.
Yes, that books were more than words on paper. They were portals to other places, other lives. It's lovely.
It really is.
And the kind of overall message seems to be that the thing about books is that they help you imagine a life bigger and better than you could ever dream of. That longing connects Opaline and Martha across time.
Okay, then you layer in the actual magic, the shop appearing and disappearing, sentient books, ghostly librarians. It's beautiful imagery, but it does ask the reader to take a big leap. How do critics tend to see that?
Well, the more analytical readings view the shop's elusiveness as a metaphor for something like inspiration, or maybe the courage you need to embrace the unknown.
Okay.
The shop tends to appear when characters are really at a low point, right? Which suggests the magic is tied to psychological need.
So it's not just random, it reflects their internal state.
Precisely. It mirrors their blockages. And Henry actually voices this later on when he starts to get it. He says something like, it's not about finding the shop, it's about letting the shop find you.
So acceptance becomes key to their growth.
Yes, acceptance defines the character arcs. Opaline is the feminist icon. Martha grows from this timid woman into a confident heroine that's the emotional core, really. And Henry evolves too.
Right. Let's shift gears a bit, though, to the reaction, because this book is a massive success. You see the numbers, 500,000 copies sold, Sunday Times bestseller, huge on social media.
Hashtag Lost Bookshop Challenge, yeah. Millions of views.
Fans call it a love letter to bibliophiles, the midnight in Paris of books. They love the emotion, the atmosphere.
And the historical detail gets a lot of praise. Those 1920s Paris scenes, the smoky cafes, that sense of literary history. Some academics have even focused on Opaline, calling her a proto-Sylvia Plath in a corset for her defiance.
But, as we said, it's fiercely polarized. And for you listening, to get the full picture, we have to talk about the frustration many readers felt, because when you look at the critiques, they often zero in on pacing and logic.
Yeah, the pacing seems to be a key issue for critics, especially maybe in the modern timeline. That, combined with characters making decisions that just felt baffling to some readers.
Well, you mentioned Henry not using Google.
Right. But Martha also gets criticized. Some found her a bit too naive for the modern world. And then later, this sudden ability she seems to develop to, censor some in the shop.
It felt unearned.
It felt unearned or unexplained to some.
And there's also a real clash with the marketing, isn't there? It's often presented as this light, cozy read.
Cozy fantasy is huge right now.
But the book deals with really serious stuff. Domestic abuse, trauma. Opaline's fate is actually quite tragic. It's not exactly light escapism.
No, and that tonal dissonance, I think, is a big part of the polarization. People go in expecting one thing and get something much heavier emotionally.
There were also complaints about specific details straining belief, weren't there, beyond the magic itself?
Yes, some historical or financial points seemed off to readers, like Opaline's eventual commitment to an asylum. The detail that her apparently broke brother was somehow paying for this expensive private care.
Right.
One reader pointed out that it just makes no sense financially, and that kind of detail can really pull you out of the story if you notice it.
It breaks the immersion. So it seems like the book's appeal might rely on a kind of emotional connection strong enough to make you overlook logical inconsistencies.
That's one way to put it. The atmosphere and the powerful themes, especially around female agency, seem to resonate so strongly that many readers forgive the plot holes. But the biggest frustration for critics definitely seem to be the loose ends. The unanswered questions.
Oh, yeah. The things the book just doesn't explain.
Absolutely. The ending felt rushed to a lot of people, and it left major questions hanging. Madame Bowden is probably the biggest one.
Who is she? Ghost. Spirit. Just eccentric. She throws a dinner party but doesn't even show up.
Exactly. Readers were totally confused about whether she was real or not and what her actual role was meant to be.
And the tattoo. Martha gets this mysterious tattoo on her back early on.
Yeah. Which seems loaded with significance, maybe hinting at some deep connection to the magic.
And then nothing. It's never mentioned again. It's like Chekhov's tattoo, and the gun never fires.
Right. And finally, Opaline's own story. For many, it felt really unresolved. After her time jump, there's a brief mention of a romance, and then her narrative just stops.
you don't know what actually happened to her. Did she die? Become a ghost? Live secretly for decades?
The lack of closure there really undercut the investment readers had made in her story.
Okay. So, The Lost Bookshop really is this fascinating study, a powerful central idea of the magical bookshop that creates deep emotional connection for many,
Yeah.
but also significant frustration about structure and logic for others. It asks you to suspend disbelief about the magic, obviously, but also sometimes about character choices and, well, basic plot mechanics.
It does. Yet for those huge numbers of readers, clearly that potent story of finding yourself, of reclaiming your narrative, outweighs those issues. The message seems to be that stories matter, yes, but maybe the people who protect and live those stories matter even more.
And it all builds to Martha learning that final lesson. The best stories aren't the ones we're given. They're the ones we dare to write ourselves. It's a powerful ending thought.
Which leads to a really interesting question for you, the listener. Thinking about these strong reactions and the book's own rule that the shop finds you only when you're ready to believe, does its quality in the end depend on how willing you are to accept its flaws?
Yeah,
Are those flaws just part of the inexplicable magic of reading itself, as some might argue? Or is that maybe just a nice way of excusing some shaky plotting?
that is definitely something to mull over next time you pick up a book that asks you to believe. And hey, if you want more on the real history behind Opalane's world, we definitely recommend Sylvia Beach's own memoir, Shakespeare and Company.
Oh, absolutely. A fantastic read.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.